Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are a new viewer, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm hoping that by the end of this video you have liked what you heard and will hit the subscription button below. If you are a returning viewer, hey boo hey, I'm so happy that the both of you are here. And as always, grab a snack, get comfortable, let's talk. So we are unpacking The Gifts of Imperfection by Dr. Brené Brown. It is not too late for you to purchase the book. Even if we get through the book, it's never too late to purchase this book. I do believe that it is a gem that you will pull from for the rest of your life. I think it's a great conversation starter. I think it's a book to gift people. Not too late to purchase it. Many of you have written me, sent me text messages and inbox messages of you purchasing it or it being on the way. And so for that, I say thank you, because that lets me know that you are engaged and that you are finding gems as I talk to you all in this book that's relevant to your life. If you choose not to purchase the book, that is okay. I do encourage you to grab a pen and paper, take some notes, because I do believe that we're gonna, chew on some good things. So in the last video, we have been talking about cultivating a resilient spirit. I mentioned that I wanted to walk slowly through this section because I feel like it's a mouthful. And just where I am in my life personally, I am assessing constantly, how resilient am I, right? I'm finding myself in situations where there are some situations that I can bounce back to my original shape, form, and posture without any thought. And then there are some that it takes me hours or an entire day to really get back to home base, as I like to call it. Home base being my attitude is in check, my mood is fine, there's peace internally and around me. And so I'm assessing what things are really causing me to be more resilient and less resilient. And so in the previous videos, which I have tagged below, if you're new to this series, she talks about the different things that builds on being resilient. She talks about the foundation being spiritual. Then you have those proactive factors, and she noticed 5 common things that resilient people have. It's not the end-all be-all list. There's more things that resilient people have in common, but these were 5 things that consistently showed its head. And then she continued in the book to say that there were 3 additional things, and that is where we are kind of walking slowly through. She said cultivating hope, practicing critical awareness, and today we're going to be unpacking letting go of numbing and taking the edge off of vulnerability, discomfort, and pain. This is probably my favorite one of the 3 because she was in my business, okay? So let's just jump right in. If you have the book, I am starting at page 69. And she says, I talked to many research participants who were struggling with worthiness. When we talked about how they dealt with difficult emotions such as shame, grief, fear, despair, disappointment, and sadness, I heard over and over about the need to numb and take the edge off of feelings that cause vulnerability, discomfort, and pain. Participants described engaging in behaviors that numb their feelings or help them to avoid experiencing the pain. So in the nutshell, the people she spoke with, when they experienced vulnerability, discomfort, or pain, she noticed that something they had in common was the need to numb those feelings to not experience it. And she says some of the participants were fully aware that their behaviors had a numbing effect, while others did not seem to make the connection. All right, keep going. When I interviewed the participants whom I would describe as wholehearted living, so she has these people who she's interviewing and she would not put them in the category of wholehearted living. And then she has those who she feels like, activates these different principles that we've been talking about in this book. She says they consistently talked about trying to feel the feelings, staying mindful about numbing behaviors, and trying to lean into the discomfort of hard emotions. So people who practice wholehearted living avoid numbing things. They avoid numbing behaviors, and they try to lean into the discomfort of hard emotions. So she knew that this behavior was tied to addiction. She couldn't figure out how or where, but she continued to do her research. And she says, while trying to better understand the consequences of numbing and how taking the edge off behaviors is related to addictions, here's what I learned. Number one, most of us engage in behaviors, consciously or not, that help us to numb and take the edge off of vulnerability, pain, and discomfort. So if you are writing this video off as like, I don't do that, baby boy, baby girl, have a seat, you probably do, because most of us do, okay? I think it comes down to assessing what type of discomfort, like where's our tolerance, and then once we've reached that like higher level that goes beyond our tolerance, I would not be surprised if we find ourselves numbing that experience, because it's like, I can't take any more discomfort. This is my no zone. Number two, she says, addiction can be described as chronically and compulsively numbing and taking the edge off of feelings. We cannot, number three, selectively numb emotions. When we numb the negative emotions, we are also numbing the positive emotions. So these are the three things that she's going to kind of unravel with us. She says, for many of us, our first response to vulnerability and pain of these sharp points is not to lean into the discomfort and feel our way through, but rather to make it go away. We do that by numbing and taking the edge off the pain with whatever provides the quickest relief. We can numb with a whole bunch of stuff, including alcohol, drugs, food, sex, relationships, money, work, caretaking, gambling, staying busy, affairs, chaos, shopping, planning, perfectionism, constant change, and the internet. So this right here is so good to me, because essentially what she's saying is that she says our first response to vulnerability and pain of these sharp points that we feel when we have to be vulnerable is not to lean into the discomfort and feel our way through it, but rather to make it go away. So when I was preparing for this, I was thinking how just recently, and if I'm gonna be completely honest, recent is like in the past 48 hours, I had come into contact with something that was uncomfortable, right? And instead of feeling my way through it, which means just experiencing the discomfort, coming face to face with the fear, addressing the uncertainties, the insecurities, the demand of vulnerability, I ran away. In my mind, the solution was to run away. And another term that I'm kind of unpacking privately is to self-sabotage. Her list is not an exhaustive list, which means even if she didn't hit on something you do, you have to go inward and ask yourself, how do I avoid discomfort? How do I respond to situations that cause me pain and is demanding a level of vulnerability? So for some of us, we eat. I'm on my health journey. If you've been following this channel, I do Fitness Fridays, and I might make this topic this Friday about having to address our emotions. But I just was telling a friend of mine the other day that when I'm having a rough day or I'm kind of sad, I want a really good meal, right? And when I said it, I was like, that's so stupid. Like, that was my internal dialogue. Like, now that I've been on this health journey, why is my comfort food? And I'm sure it's because there's a void that I'm experiencing, and this meal just feels like comfort, right? It feels good. But what's happening is that I'm not addressing the discomfort. I'm not allowing myself to walk fully into being vulnerable. You know, I even missed an opportunity to lock in with this person to say, I want to make a meal. I want to make a really, soothing meal. I wanted to have mashed potatoes, steak, and broccoli and asparagus. And I just want to eat until I don't feel what I'm feeling, so that we can engage and discuss what the real problem is. But I missed that opportunity because I wrote it off as just like, this is how I'm dealing with it. I hope that makes sense. And so I really, really love this, because what it does is it's causing me to look at myself and say, okay, how am I spending my time? Even in being productive. Like I told my students literally today at our check-in, because, we're in this pandemic, I said, something that I've learned is that the way I respond to anxiety or stress correlates in some way, shape, form, or fashion with my level of productivity. The more I busy myself, depending on what's going on, I'm probably avoiding something majorly, right? Like, we live in a society that celebrates us for being busy and productive, but behind that behavior could be avoidance and fear and not exploring what is going on, you know? So that is just like another topic that when I was reading this, I'm like, yo, this is big, because we think that shopping and sex and relationships, like, how many relationships do we get in, stay in, or leave because we don't want to lean into the discomfort of what comes with that relationship or what comes with leaving that relationship? Like, it's a twofold. But only you know what you're avoiding. Only you know the pain that you're not trying to tap into. And so, like I said, for myself, the past 48 hours where I had kind of come into this, I'm like, yo, instead of leaning into the discomfort and allowing it to teach me and sharpen me and develop me, I took an avoidance route. I wanted to do what felt good versus what was scary and necessary, you know? So then she says, the men and women in my study whom I would describe as fully engaged in wholehearted living were not immune to numbing. So once you decide to live this wholehearted living, to put certain practices into place that she talks about, she's saying that people who are doing these things are not immune to it. That's not their norm. And it's probably because they're constantly having this dialogue with themselves. They're being introspective. But she says the primary difference between people who were living wholeheartedly and those who probably weren't is that they seem to be, aware of the dangers that numbing had developed. The difference seems to be that they were aware of the dangers of numbing and had developed the ability to feel their way through high vulnerability experiences. That's so good. Like, I had questions, and I opened with some of the questions that, or maybe I'll close with it, I haven't decided yet, but I asked people just anonymously to tell me, like, how do you deal with discomfort? Do you typically prefer to avoid it? And some of the responses was like, you know, you just get through it, or you do it uncomfortably. And I think it's because we don't talk about when we are uncomfortable, when we are experiencing a level of discomfort. We just kind of pacify it. We kind of just want to feel good quickly. And even that is like, it's blessing me right now, because what do we miss when we rush from discomfort to a solution? I'm not saying that every time you experience discomfort, you should linger there, but some things, right? Like, if I'm gonna be completely courageous and honest with you all, like, to lean into the fear of falling in love and the joy of it, right? I'm jumping ahead of my notes, so I'm gonna just pause right there. I'm just gonna pause right there. So she says, I've spent most of my life trying to outrun vulnerability and uncertainty. I wasn't raised with the skills and emotional practice needed to lean into the discomfort. So over time, I basically became a take the edge off alcoholic. So she started drinking because that took that discomfort, that edge off for her. She says, for me, it wasn't the dance halls, cold beer, Marlboro Lights of my youth that got out of hand. It was the banana bread chips, queso dip, emails, work, staying busy, incessant worrying, planning, perfectionism, and anything else that could dull those agonizing and anxiety-fueled feelings of vulnerability. So I don't know what yours is. If it's excessive partying, if it's having sex instead of talking, if it's going shopping, if it's eating, if it's hanging out with people, if it's on social media for hours, if it's binge watching Netflix, if it's sleeping all day, it is replacing the work of having to actually deal with the discomfort that you are experiencing, and also coming into contact with having to be vulnerable. She says, again, after years of research, now this is so good, I'm convinced that we all numb and take the edge off. The question is, does our blank, so blank is whatever you choose to do, whether it's eating, drinking, spending money, gambling, saving the world, gossiping, perfectionism, 60-hour work week. So I'm going to put my statement in. The question is, does our eating get in the way of our authenticity? And I'm using that example because I referenced it earlier, but I literally just said, like, eating gets in the way of me being authentic with my community, because instead of just saying like, y'all, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I feel sad, I feel rejected, I feel depressed, I feel whatever is happening, I'm eating it. And so you have to, not eating it, but I'm eating. So you have to ask yourself, is there a behavior? Is your perfectionism? Is it your excessive work schedule? Is it your relationships that you choose to get in consistently or continue to leave? Whatever it is that you do, baby, is that preventing you from being authentic? Is it getting in the way of you being authentic? And then she says, does it stop us from being emotionally honest and setting boundaries and feeling like we are enough? Does it keep us from staying out of judgment and from feeling connected? Are we using, I'm inserting mine, food to hide or escape from the reality of our lives? I'm gonna throw this book. It's so good because this is essentially, they're questions that is helping you develop a level of resiliency. And you're not gonna walk away from this video with anything if you don't pause and ask yourself, what are some things that I do when I am experiencing discomfort? I would even think that isolation is a response to it, because you are disconnecting from your community. You are not having to come face to face with what is going on, right? She said, does it stop us from being emotionally honest and setting boundaries and feeling like we're enough? Does it keep us from staying out of judgment? Absolutely. If I had told my friend the other day, I'm having a really sad day, and here's why, I think it's ridiculous, but it's happening, I'm avoiding judgment. I'm avoiding being honest. I'm avoiding having to tap into my emotions. I'm avoiding connection. She said, are we using it to hide or escape from the reality of our lives? Absolutely. Even if I went to get something healthy, like let's be very clear. Even if I got something healthier than what I just mentioned on here, what if I got a big salad? I'm still not connecting with my community and people who can help me process and navigate through this discomfort, because I'm eating until I feel better or until the discomfort passes. And that doesn't mean it went addressed. And that does not mean that I jump back into my home base, which whole circle, I'm not being resilient because I'm not, getting back into and getting back intact at the rate that I should. She says, understanding my behaviors and feelings through a vulnerability lens rather than strictly through an addiction lens changed my entire life. It also strengthened my commitment to sobriety, abstinence, health, and spirituality. She says, I can definitely say, so she uses this example, which I love because I want to put my name in it. But she says, this is what vulnerability and, connection and just allowing yourself to feel the feel sounds like. Her example was, hi, my name is Brene, and today I'd like to deal with vulnerability and uncertainty with an apple fritter, a beer, a cigarette, and spending hours on Facebook. She says that feels like that feels uncomfortably honest. And y'all, I'm always getting emotional here. I'm not doing it today. I love that statement, because what I want to challenge myself to do and what I want to challenge you to do is, when you are choosing not to feel, not to navigate it, when you have someone or people who you love I want you to try to say, you know, hey, my name is Alicia, and today I got into a space that feels a lot like rejection, and instead of dealing with it, I want to eat. No one's going to do that, right? No one's going to tell their friends that, but saying it allows you to see what you're avoiding and how you are avoiding it. You got to be honest with yourself for that to work. It don't have to be food. Today, instead of addressing the argument I had yesterday, I'm going to be laser focused into my work in the name of productivity, but it's still eating at me, which means I'm not leaning into the field. I'm not navigating the discomfort. I'm avoiding it. I'm avoiding saying I'm hurt, or this bothered me, or this set me back, or this, you know, whew. And so last thing, and then I'm done. She says, when we numb the dark, we numb the light. And I think this is so important to say. She says, there is a full spectrum of human emotions. And when we numb the dark, so numbing the things like rejection, pain, discomfort, all of that, we also unknowingly teach ourselves to numb the light. She says, joy is as thorny and sharp as any of the dark emotions. To love someone fiercely, to believe in something with your whole heart, and to celebrate a fleeting moment in time, to fully engage in a life that doesn't come with guarantees, these are risks that involve vulnerability and often pain. Okay? When we lose our tolerance for discomfort, we lose joy. She says, in fact, addiction research shows us that an intensely positive experience is as likely to cause relapse as an intensely painful experience. So and then she goes on to say, like, you can't make a list of bad emotions and say, you know, I'm going to numb these. Because if you numb the bad emotions, the difficult ones, you also don't have the capacity to respond to the joyful emotions the right way. And so I was sharing this a little bit, but just like to think that because I struggle with navigating discomfort, right? Due to not wanting to think about failure or heartbreak, or rejection, or just being vulnerable and it not ending how I want it to, I'm also robbing myself of fully experiencing love. Like real, radical, freeing, encouraging, consistent love. Isn't that crazy? We think that we're protecting ourselves from one emotion, one end of the spectrum. But you're also robbing yourself from fully engaging the other end of that because you don't know how to navigate this space, which means you can't fully navigate this space. Y'all. She said to love someone fiercely, to believe in something with your whole heart, to celebrate a fleeting moment in time, to fully engage in a life that doesn't come with guarantees. These are risks that involve vulnerability and often pain. When we lose our tolerance for discomfort, we lose joy. Addiction research shows that an intensely positive experience is as likely to cause relapse as an intensely painful experience. I am a witness that you can get everything you prayed for and somehow ruin that moment because you don't know how to navigate that. Because you also don't know how to navigate, what if this is taken from me? What if this doesn't work? You know? So, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.